During dinner with my family, my dad suddenly shouted right in my face, "You and that kid of yours are just freeloaders." My mom gave this ridiculous little smirk, clearly agreeing with him, all while they were living under my roof. Without missing a beat, I looked him dead in the eye and said calmly, "You've got 24 hours to leave." Hey Reddit, I'm Nina, 29, single mom to a sweet 6-year-old boy named Leo. I work full-time in tech, pay my taxes, stay out of trouble, and until yesterday, I was letting my parents live in my house rent-free. Yep, my house. Let me back up a little. 4 years ago, my parents hit a rough patch. My dad's small business went under, and my mom's hours got cut. Around that same time, I'd just gotten promoted and finally bought a modest 3-bedroom home. I offered them the guest room, just until they could get back on their feet. It was supposed to be temporary, but here we were 4 years later, and they were still there. No rent, no utilities. They rarely even bought groceries. Over time, they'd grown so comfortable it was like they believed they were entitled to stay. They criticized everything. How I raised Leo, the way I cooked, what I wore, even how I did my job. Still, I tolerated it because, well, they're family. That is, until last night. It was Leo's school project night. He'd made this adorable solar system diorama and was so proud of it. He asked if Grandma and Grandpa wanted to see it. They were sitting at the dinner table in my kitchen, and my dad rolled his eyes. "We're eating," he said. "That nonsense can wait." Leo's face fell. He quietly left the room, clutching his project. A minute later, I found him sitting on the stairs, holding it tightly, tears welling up in his eyes. My heart broke. I comforted him, then went back to the table, pulse racing. That's when my dad looked straight at me and snapped, "You know, you and that kid are just freeloaders. You wouldn't last a day without us." My mom actually laughed and added, "Honestly, we're the ones who keep this house running emotionally. Without us, it'd all fall apart." My jaw clenched, but I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I stood up, picked up my plate, calmly walked to the sink and said, "You have 24 hours to get out of my house." Silence. Then my dad scoffed. "Your house? Don't act like you're better than us just because I cut you off. The deed's in my name, remember? I pay every bill, every tax, every mortgage. You don't contribute anything. You just look down on us and now you've insulted your father." I turned, voice steady. "Every payment, every utility, every tax. I've handled all of it. You don't pay a dime. And you just called my son a freeloader in his own home. You've got 24 hours. Pack your things." My mom stared at me, stunned. "You wouldn't dare." I met her gaze and said, "The Wi-Fi password's already changed. Don't push me to see what else I'll do." That night, I couldn't sleep. Leo curled up beside me in bed, while downstairs I could hear bags being angrily packed and drawers slamming. When morning came, I half expected them to apologize, maybe realize how far they'd gone. Instead, I walked into the kitchen to find them sitting there like nothing happened, drinking my coffee with my creamer, using my groceries. Dad didn't even glance up. "We talked it over last night," he said. "We're not leaving. This is our family home." I almost laughed. "Family home? You never owned this place. I bought it after years of saving while you two spent decades avoiding responsibility." "Wrong," I said firmly. "It's mine, and you're leaving today." That set my mom off. She slammed her mug down so hard that coffee splashed across the table. "You're really going to throw out your own parents? After everything we've done for you? We gave you life, Nina. The least you could do is give us a roof." I looked at her and said evenly, "You've had a roof over your heads for 4 years, free of charge, and in return, you've made my son feel unwelcome in his own home. That stops now." Dad's face turned red as he stood. "You're heartless. You'll regret this. You think you're so independent, but one day you'll come crawling back because you need us." I stood my ground. I'd spent years being their scapegoat, but not anymore. I don't need people who tear down a 6-year-old for simply asking them to look at his school project. From the hallway, Leo peeked out, clutching his little backpack. He looked terrified. That's when I knew there was no going back. I took out my phone, right there in front of them, and called the non-emergency police line. Calmly, I explained that 2 people were refusing to leave my property after being given notice. The look on their faces changed instantly. "Would you like me to make this read more like a Reddit style?" Mom's mouth fell open. "You wouldn't dare." Dad gave a sneer, though I caught a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. You're bluffing. The dispatcher on the line asked if I wanted officers to come. I looked straight at my parents and spoke clearly, making sure they heard every word. Yes, please send someone. I need help removing unwanted guests from my property. That was the instant everything shifted. The power they'd lorded over me for years vanished. They stammered, swore, tried to guilt-trip me. We raised you. You're really turning your back on your family? What will everyone think when they hear you kicked out your own parents? But I didn't move. For the first time ever, I had the upper hand. By the time the dispatcher confirmed an officer was on the way, they'd finally started dragging their luggage toward the front door. When the police cruiser pulled into the driveway, their half-zipped suitcases were already sitting on the porch. They glared at me as if I'd betrayed them, but once the officer asked who owned the home, they stayed silent. I showed the deed. End of conversation. The officer gave them two options: leave quietly now or face a formal trespassing charge. They muttered the whole time, but eventually stepped off the porch. When the door clicked shut behind them, the sound felt final. For the first time in years, the house was quiet, peaceful, safe. But that calm didn't last. That night, my phone lit up non-stop. Texts, voicemails, Facebook messages from cousins, aunts, even old neighbors. Mom had wasted no time twisting the story. She threw us out with nowhere to go. She's turned her own child against us. We sacrificed everything for her, and this is how she repays us. One cousin texted, "Can't believe you'd do that to your parents. Blood's thicker than water." Another chimed in, "So what if they lived with you? That's what family's for. Be grateful." I didn't answer. My hands were trembling, not from guilt, but from anger. Because none of them had been around these last 4 years. Not one had seen my dad call Leo a crybaby when he asked for homework help. Not one had heard my mom laugh when I came home after 12-hour shifts to a pile of dirty dishes. None of them had paid my mortgage or covered a single bill. None had watched my son's little face crumple every time his grandparents brushed him aside. And yet, here they were, lecturing me about family. The final straw came when my aunt called. "If you don't let them back in," she said, "the entire family will cut you off." I burst out laughing so hard she went silent. "Good," I said finally. "Consider me cut off. I'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who think abuse is normal." Then I hung up. That was the moment I realized something important. Their approval meant nothing. I didn't need their validation. I didn't need their version of family. That night, Leo and I curled up on the couch with popcorn, watching his favorite movie. He leaned against me and whispered, "Is it just us now?" I kissed his forehead. "Yeah, buddy, just us. And that's more than enough." That first night after they were gone, I barely slept. I kept waiting to hear Dad's heavy footsteps in the hall or Mom banging pots in the kitchen. Instead, all I heard was Leo's soft breathing from his room and the steady hum of the fridge. For the first time in years, my house was still. The next morning, Leo padded into the kitchen in his pajamas, rubbing his sleepy eyes. He glanced around, confused. "Grandma and Grandpa aren't here?" I shook my head. "No, buddy. It's just us now." He thought for a second, then grinned. "Can we eat breakfast in the living room?" I laughed. Something so simple, yet something we'd never been allowed before. We made pancakes and ate them on the couch while cartoons played on TV. He smiled the whole time, and that's when it hit me, how many tiny freedoms had been taken from him while they lived here. But the peace didn't last. 3 days later, would you like me to continue reading? 3 days later, the pounding started. Dad was outside, his voice so loud it echoed down the street. Neighbors peeked through their windows. "You can't just toss us out like this. We're your parents. Let us in." I stood on the other side of the door, heart hammering but voice steady. "You need to leave, Dad. This isn't your home anymore." "You owe us," he barked, "after everything we've done for you." I cut him off before he could say another word. "I don't owe you anything, not after calling me and my son freeloaders in the house I pay for." I held my phone up to the peephole so he could see. "If you don't leave right now, I'll call the police again." He cursed under his breath and stomped off. For the first time, I didn't feel like the little girl being scolded. I felt like the homeowner I actually was. A week later, Mom tried a different approach. She called, sobbing into the phone. Nina, we don't have any food. We're starving. Do you really want your parents to go hungry? For a split second, guilt tried to creep in. Old instincts are hard to kill. But then I looked at Leo, lying on the floor, colouring peacefully, finally relaxed in his own home. I remembered how they'd laughed when he wanted to show off his school project. I took a deep breath. You're adults, I said. You'll figure it out, just like I did when I was 16. Don't call me again unless it's to apologize. Then I hung up. 10 days later came another knock. This time, Mom held a bouquet of flowers and Dad forced a smile. Let's just put this behind us, Mom said in that sugary tone she used when she wanted something. We'll come back, help with Leo, make this house feel like a real family home again. I stared at them, stunned by the nerve. A real family home? I repeated. Leo and I already have that. What you want is control. Dad's smile faltered. So you're really cutting us off? From our grandson too? I stepped into the doorway so they could see my face clearly. Until you can treat both me and Leo with respect, you're not part of our lives, and this house will never be yours again. I shut the door. This time, there was no guilt, only relief. After that, their efforts fizzled out. Their final attempt was a pity post on Facebook. A photo of them looking heartbroken with the caption, "Some children forget who gave them life." A few relatives commented their support, but most didn't bother. Even the family was getting tired of their theatrics. Eventually, they found a small apartment across town. My uncle told me they complained non-stop about how ungrateful I was, but no one else volunteered to take them in. Without me funding their lifestyle, reality hit them fast. Meanwhile, Leo and I thrived. I turned their old room into his very own space, something that was finally his. We painted the walls a deep navy blue, stuck glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, and filled the shelves with his books and artwork. He calls it his galaxy room. The night we finished, he switched off the lights, stared up at the glowing stars, and whispered, "Mom, our house is happy again." I pulled him into a hug, eyes stinging, because he was right. The whole place felt lighter, warmer, ours. Do I regret what I did? Not for a single second. Kicking my parents out wasn't cruelty, it was survival. I didn't just reclaim my home, I protected my son's peace. I showed him that no one, not even family, gets to make him feel unwelcome where he belongs. Family isn't just blood. Family is love, safety, and respect. And in this house, that means me and Leo. That's more than enough. So Reddit, that's where we stand now. My home is finally peaceful, and my son is happier than ever. But tell me, was I too harsh, or did I simply do what had to be done? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss the next family drama tale.